historian as he talks about our history pre-slavery.
But we have to deal with the real people on the ground as best we can. Forced conversion, which is what happened to the Jews and the Moors living in Iberia, because they were black, right? And they of course, they knew who they were. So as the Europeans took over Iberia and took over and conquered the Moors and pushed them out of the area, anybody that was left, they were forced to convert. And they were called conversos. And they were never trusted by Rome at all, because they didn't believe they really had converted, and many of them were practicing their Judaism or their Muslim religion in secret and pretending to be Catholic, even getting baptized, but they still weren't living that way. They were living two lives. So conversos. So even though they stayed quiet and practiced it, they were under constant fear, because spies were sent out, and people that didn't like them would say something, and then they'd be rounded up through the Inquisition. And we know all about the Inquisition. I don't need to get into what happened to people if you got caught up in that. So a wrong word, a suspicious neighbor, anything could mean torture and death at the hands of the Inquisition, of the Catholics at that time. Whole communities carried that fear, right? Whole communities. And in the end, they left Spain, like they fled Spain. And some of them went up and became Huguenots, I think. They went up into France and that area. Some of them actually went up into Netherlands and everywhere. And some escaped into Greece and that area. And some were made into slaves. We'll talk about that in a minute. So this wasn't only pressure from one generation, okay? Because after they fled Spain, they went to Portugal, but that only lasted for a couple of years. And then the Portuguese shipped them down to Saint Tomé and other parts of West Africa. And then they went from there in ships as well. So, as I said, this wasn't the only pressure coming from one direction. In that area in 1493, the King of Portugal ordered some 2,000 Jewish children were taken from their families. None of them was older than 8 years old. They were forcibly taken from their parents, as I said, baptized against their will, and shipped nearly 5,000 miles to an island, a fever-ridden island called Sao Tome, off the West African coast, down near Ghana, down in that area. And within a year, roughly 600 of those 2,000 children were still alive. So most of them died. Well, way more than half of them just perished because of disease, because of the animals on the island. But they were only 8 years old and younger when they were taken down there. So there's some people that are going to answer to Heavenly Father absolutely about this, especially from the European colonial people. But that be that as it may. The island had no infrastructure to receive them. So the rest died from disease, they say, from the conditions, and some accounts say from wild animals on the island, because there was no infrastructure to receive them. And this is recorded by a Jewish writer living through that area himself, not just modern historians looking back. And the survivors who lived long enough eventually intermarried with the enslaved Africans brought to that very island to work its plantations. Two persecuted peoples on the same island, and their histories entangled to that point.